I think it's time to rank every Smash game and give my reasoning as to why I feel the way I do about all of that.
Yes! Show me your moves.
I think that every single Smash game is, at worst, pretty solid. Even the worst Smash game is still like a pretty solid game. Like, yeah, I think I'll just keep S, A, and B because S tier is generally like the best of the best. A tier is like excellent, and then B is like pretty good. And I think everything is at least pretty good. Also, for the purposes of ranking, I'm not gonna just think about them as a competitive game. I'm gonna think about them as a casual game as well. Because a lot of these games are designed with casual in mind. So I'm going to consider both views about the same. Because especially when I was younger, I played these games just casually too. So it definitely changes things up. So with that in mind, I think it's pretty safe to put this in B tier. Smash 4 3DS, I feel like as far as the Smash games go, when you look at what a lot of sequels do, a lot of them brought a lot to the table, a lot of new modes, a lot of exciting new stuff. I feel like of all the new Smash games after the original, Smash 4 kind of brought the least new stuff to the table. It did have Smash Run though, so that was cool. They didn't really play like Smash 4 3DS once, you know, it came out on the Wii or Wii U, but Smash Run was great. Obviously, being able to have a Smash game on a portable at the time was pretty cool, but having to play Smash on that controller was eh. So I think this is probably the weakest overall Smash experience, and a lot of that is the control's fault. The controller just eh. After that, I'm probably going to put, I think I'm going to put regular Smash 4 afterwards. I think regular Smash 4 is better, but like I mentioned before, I feel like it brings the least new good stuff to the table relative to other games. It kind of had a lack of like good modes. Like there wasn't that much to do for single player, and it didn't really bring that much new stuff to the table multiplayer wise either, which definitely weakened it a lot as a casual experience. Because if I remember correctly, they didn't even have stage builder until like later on, and a bunch of other stuff. They took away Smash Run, and it just felt like kind of a sparse package for a Smash game. And then competitively, this game had some other issues too. Like, remember when customs were legal? Oh god. Another thing that hurt this game a lot was the existence of rage. It made the game ridiculously volatile as a competitive game. This game had probably the most coin flippy tournament results of any Smash competitive game, and it was extremely stressful to play because of that. Most of the people who actually played in tournaments were, especially towards the end of the game's lifespan, as DLC was taking over, were not having a good time. But it was a lot more fun until then, and Smash 4 did have some cool stuff going for it aside from that. Like, I think Beto is a really cool thing. Like, Beto was such a cool control concept. Being able to use, like, keyed specials as a movement option, and all the unique movement that having Beto opened up. I think perfect pivots are really cool, but the general, the somewhat sparse package as a casual game combined with Bayonetta and Cloud taking over the game and Rage made it to where it's probably the weakest mainline entry competitively in my opinion. Obviously this is all my opinion. I'm not some omniscient Smash god that knows everything and has the objectively correct opinions, but it's my opinion. Let's see, after that, I know what my next two are going to be for A tier, but I haven't decided. I'm still thinking about the order. I'm going to go with Smash 64 next. Smash 64 is obviously the original. It was a really fun game. Competitively, it has a lot of cool stuff. It has a meta that's pretty unique for Smash. It's kind of like, the meta is almost like Marvel vs. Capcom in a lot of ways, where it eventually became very zero death heavy. But since everyone could do it, it kind of became balanced in its own sense, where if everyone's broken, then no one is broken. That's kind of what happened to this game, and it makes it pretty unique and has a very distinctive identity that obviously is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but a lot of people love it for that. And there's a lot of cool stuff that came out of the game culturally too, like combo contests, which you see at things like SmashCon and other tournaments. And while casually it's a bit sparse nowadays, you also have to remember that it's an old game, you know? It brought a lot to the table for its time, and it was a really fun game casually. Like, I'll tell you now, when I was a kid and I was playing this game, I never thought to myself that this game was lacking in things to do, you know? Like, it can kind of look that way in retrospect, but I had a great time with this game. And I think it's excellent, just in general. Next up, I think this is where I'd probably put Brawl above it. I think Brawl is the next one. I'll talk about it competitively first. So competitively, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. You have tripping, which I think pretty much everyone in their right mind agrees that sucks. That's probably the most like objectively bad mechanic Smash has ever had. And even if it didn't really happen that often, because I think it applied like, I can't remember the rate, but every time you would like dash or walk, it had a certain chance of happening. And it wasn't that high, but it was high enough to where it would definitely have a real effect on matches. Like sometimes you would trip and then ice climbers would grab you during the trip and you got 0 deaths and it was literally not your fault at all. And this game also had, well, the aforementioned ice climbers, which are, you know, kind of cancerous to play against. And then it also had Brawl Meta Knight, which is probably the most dominant Smash character of all time. He didn't like do anything like by itself that was too objectively crazy. He was mostly just a character that was just really overtuned in every department. The closest parallel in Ultimate is probably like Aegis. Imagine if Pyra Mythra had a godlike recovery and their advantage was way better, and then a lot of their moves were just a little bit better. And that would probably be like a similar experience to playing Brawl Meta Knight, where the character didn't really have any one move that pushed them over. They kind of just had, everything was just a bit too good. And then it just made things crazy. But aside from that, a lot of people really loved Brawl, even if it was a bit lacking in combos. A lot of people liked that it was super neutral heavy, and like even to this day, a lot of people look back on Brawl pretty fondly, even if the people who don't like combos absolutely hated it for that, and that's valid. But let's talk about the other side of Brawl, where I think this game absolutely knocks it out of the park. I'm gonna say this right now. I think Brawl, relative to its time, was absolutely peak casual Smash. This game had so many game modes. It had the virtual console. It had like the coin. It had like the coin launcher, or was that Melee? I can't remember. It had an ungodly amount of things to do. It had event matches. It had Subspace Emissary. It had so many just amazing things going for it. I know when I got this game, every single day felt like Christmas for like a year straight. There was so much to do with Brawl. It was such a good time. Even if competitively it's not everyone's cup of tea, at least what it did, a lot of people loved it for what it was, even if a lot of people also didn't. Brawl is maybe the most polarizing one competitively, where like some people think it's like the worst thing ever, but there's also a decent amount of people who really loved it, you know? Either way, I think that about sums up my thoughts on Brawl. I wonder if you guys can predict which one I'm gonna have at number 2 and number 1. Because I already know, but I'm curious. My number 2, I'm putting Smash Ultimate. I think this game has a lot to do casually. It brought a lot to the table as far as new characters. The fact that it brought back everyone, and I mean everyone, from a casual standpoint is ridiculous and just great. We've had tons of new characters. We've had like a lot more game modes. Smash 4 was kind of sparse, but then they remembered with Ultimate, hey, let's bring back lots of game modes again and give people a lot to do. World of Light was kind of eh, but like the sheer variety of game modes and customization in this game, combined with a massive cast and a pretty solid general game speed, this game is just fantastic casually. And competitively, I think it's pretty good for the most part too. I think its biggest weaknesses competitively are, I think it would be nice if this game had more movement mechanics that gave you more expressiveness in your movement. But aside from that, like the game balance is pretty good for the most part. You can definitely find success to some extent with pretty much all the characters. And there's a pretty large amount of characters that have found competitive success at higher levels too. I think this game is slightly carried music-wise by the fact that it just has so much. I would argue that musically, Brawl was peak, even if it doesn't have anywhere near as much as Ultimate, just because it felt more unified in how its music felt as a package. Whereas Ultimate, it kind of feels like they just threw literally everything at it, which that's fine. And just having such a ridiculous amount of good music is obviously amazing. But it does feel like they kind of just threw everything at it, which there's nothing wrong with that. Oh yeah, I'm not a big fan of Ultimate's main theme, yeah. But yeah, I think this game has got a lot going for it competitively. You have a lot going for it casually. As a whole, it's a great game. But now, we get to number 1, baby. When you look at this game casually, for Melee, you end up with a game that did a really ridiculous amount to expand from Smash 64. Like, if you look at the modes that Melee has compared to Smash 64, it's ludicrous how much of an upgrade it is with things for you to do. Even if you're just like single player and you're like frothing at the mouth and just playing casually, you know? There was all the different single player modes. You had all the event matches, you had all the things like home run contests, you had all the really cool break the targets stages that were really unique. You had all the interesting ways of unlocking characters. You had like the coin launcher minigame, you had the orchestral music, you had... This game has so much going for it. All the cool stages to unlock. I think this was like... This game did a really good job of making unlocking stuff feel fun and exciting. It had the adventure mode, which was a lot of fun. It had All-Star. It really just had so much new stuff that just made it feel like such a nice progression of Smash 64 in so many ways. Even if you have zero idea what any competitive mechanics are like, you know? There's a reason why I think it was the best-selling game on GameCube, and at the time, no one played it really competitively like that for the most part. It's kind of insane how good this game is casually for how little development time they had. And then on top of that, there is one downside I want to mention casually that definitely hurts Melee looking back on it, is that a lot of games nowadays have much more comprehensive buffer systems, where a lot of games nowadays feel smoother to play immediately than Melee does, because you have much more comprehensive buffer systems so that you don't have to press things on the exact frame for your inputs to get lost because you thought you could do something in time. So like, it can be a little unfriendly immediately to play looking back on, just because you'll get used to playing games where you might be in an unactionable state and press a button just before you are in an actionable one, and the game will buffer it for you so that it comes out when you feel like it should. So Melee can feel slightly unresponsive at first if you're a casual player playing it nowadays, which definitely hurts it. But back in the day, that wasn't really a thing, so no one really cared. And yeah, Melee was great casually. I spent an ungodly amount of time playing this game as a kid with all my friends and never knowing what a wave dash was or any of that, and it didn't matter, you know? And then you get to the competitive side of this game, and holy sh**. I don't even think this is a controversial take. I think Melee has an argument for being the best competitive game ever made. This game slaps. There's a reason why it still has a large, passionate player base to this day. It's more than 20 years old, and a lot of the community is growing. Think about that for a second, how insane that is. Is there any other game that is that old and the competitive community is growing? What? It's a testament to how much people love this game and how much they enjoy it. But ultimately why they enjoy it is the game pretty much has close to limitless depth, where you have such a large amount of mechanics. You have the expressiveness of its mechanics, the sheer variety of movement options, the fact that you can play the game in so many different ways with pretty much every character. Like, you can watch like 10 different Falcon players play, and if you know the game well enough, you could easily tell which one is which without even like knowing who's actually playing at a time. There's a level of expressiveness and depth to the game that is almost unheard of and maybe even unmatched. Like, it's kind of insane how much this game lets you express yourself and play how you want to, even at top level. Because usually what happens with a lot of competitive games, or even anything that gets optimized, is the farther you push a game, what happens is more and more strategies become invalidated as the best ones just stomp out the others, you know? That's what happens with most games the better and better you get at them. And then for the most part, the opposite happens in Melee, where you can just get away with more and more if you're just good enough at it. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but Melee is inherently defensive. But there are tons of players who are like balls to the wall aggro, even with characters you wouldn't expect, and you can make it work. This game is good. And as far as competitive games go, I mean, obviously everyone's gonna have their different opinion of what the best would be, but I would argue that Melee deserves to be a part of that conversation. The game is really balanced too. Like, about half of the cast sees competitive like results even today. More than 20 years later, and more than half the cast still gets relevant results at majors. That's insane. This game has had so many different characters that people thought were number one at some point or another. And there could arguably be even more characters that could succeed like that, and maybe they just need a good enough player. If I remember correctly, it took almost 10 years for Yoshi to get any results at all. 10 years! Holy sh*. And now Amsa is like consistently top 8ing or even top 4ing majors. Like, that's insane from a game balance perspective. And even the generally agreed upon best character in the game, Fox, is one that people like watching for the most part. Normally best characters get hated a lot more, and it feels like that doesn't happen in that game. Melee is good. It's real good. Either way, that about sums it up. I'm pretty happy with how this came out though. You guys take care.